And welcome back. Social unrest linked to load shedding and prolonged power outages has started to hit parts of South Africa as citizens fed up with the power cuts take to the streets. Unstable coalitions are also a stumbling block for local government service delivery. For more on this matter, we are now joined via Zoom by Mike Makwela, who is a senior program coordinator at Planact, a non-profit organization promoting accountability and transparency in local government. Thank you so much for making time for us this morning. Let's start off with the big conversation, and that is with the cholera outbreak now in the city of Tshwane, and the blame the Department of Health as well as the Department of Water blaming the unstable coalition in the city of Tshwane for that cholera outbreak. What's your take on it?
Morning, Adrian. Thank you for inviting Planact. Indeed, it's a very sad day and condolences to the families that have lost their loved ones in Hammanskraal because of the cholera outbreak. It's not something that one can really put the finger on in terms of why is it that this is still happening in this age. So condolences to the families. Of course, the coalition governments in local government is not stable at all. Whether it's in Johannesburg, whether it's in Tshwane, whether it's in Ekurhuleni, it's very, very problematic, this instability. It has a direct impact on the service delivery, especially in poor communities, in informal settlements. So the sooner we sort out this mess of poor coalition, the better, because we can see it is affecting service delivery.
Well, the argument from some people is that because there are people who are employed by the state, employed by the municipality, so the municipality must be able to continue to function, even if there is instability at a council level. Are you able to make the link between the instability in the council and also how that has an impact or the ripple effect of it when it comes to the administration of the local municipalities?
There is a rippling effect because, remember, in terms of our legislation, the mayor and his or her team are tasked with executive authority. So if you have instability on that level, it trickles down to the officials. So can you imagine if you're an official and you are supposed to take instruction, executive instruction from the politicians and they are nowhere to be found. It has an impact on service delivery. Of course, there are municipal managers, there are officials who are employed to do what they're supposed to do, but there's a lot of conflicting messages. Remember, when a mayor comes in, he or she has priorities. So once you try and stabilize as officials to respond to those priorities, then there's an immediate shift. So it creates a big problem. You're working in an environment where you're not certain that tomorrow you'll be in that position. Remember, if your term of office is linked with the political office, most likely when the political head moves, you are most likely to be affected. So that creates anxiety, that creates a sense of not sure what to do. So there's a direct link between the political instability and service delivery. And it's very clear. I mean, we, in our Asivikelane index report, we actually seeing it, that for the past few months, there's been a decline in service delivered by about 10%. And that's quite huge, which means the water that is supposed to be delivered, it's not delivered as it should. The waste that should be collected is not collected as it should. Sanitation, we can go on, and we are seeing it with load shedding as an impact. Add to that the potholes. And so you have this mess going on in our municipalities. Least to say that it's not a problem of money, because you have the municipal infrastructure grant and a variety of grants that are available for municipalities to use for the purpose that are intended for. for infrastructure development, for making sure that the services are run. But somehow the grants that are actually conditional are not used for the purpose that are being. We're seeing every financial year some municipalities are returning money back to Treasury. And that's quite worrisome because it has a direct impact on service delivery.
Yeah, and as that report indicated, billions of rands in unspent grants going back to Treasury. But then let's speak about the district development model, because the idea of the district development model was also that it will be able to help when it comes to the coordination of the work that's being done by these municipalities. But then South Africa also has an entire ministry called the Department of Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs that's supposed to be assisting when it comes to some of the lapses in these municipalities, but seemingly it's not working.
Well, I think it's still early days really for anyone to make a case about the DDM model. Exciting model. When you read it on paper, it's supposed to help us to coordinate intergovernmental relations, to strengthen both vertical and horizontal. It's really early days because let's throw in another issue of community participation in the district models, because it's very important that this model, this intervention does not leave behind the inputs of communities. And we know from the practice or IDP budget process that there's a lot of tick the box really. So one gets quite concerned that the district model does not fall into that crack of making sure that community participation and involvement is not taken very seriously. Because who feels it knows it? It is the communities that feel the brand of poor service delivery, poor coordination, poor intergovernmental relations, and it's expressed through poor service delivery. So we hope that this model will work. It's quite early days now. Let's give it a chance. It has not yet kicked in that one can make a conclusive evidence that it is working. Would attempt, one plan, one budget, good model indeed, and we hope that if it can work, it can be replicated across the country, and that will fill the gaps that we are seeing of poor accountability, poor public participation, poor coordination, and improved service delivery. So let's wait and see.
Yeah. When it comes to governance, another issue is that you look at the Auditor General, and year in, year out, the Auditor General's report paints a bleak picture on the unqualified people that are being appointed in municipalities, and also the reliance on consultants by these municipalities. However, though, the matrix that's being relied on by the Auditor General just speaks to the showing the receipt of the money that has been spent, and not necessarily when it comes to governance issues, and which matrix should we be using, who should we be counting on and relying on to give us an outcome in terms of governance.
Well, let's make it a bit more complicated. The Auditor General does not audit participation, for example. The Auditor General audits whether the money has been spent for the purpose that it has been. So if we're to really, because it's you can't talk about governance and implementation of government programs without starting at the beginning. And the beginning is about communities making sure that they make their needs clear to the municipality, and the municipality prioritizes together with the community, and the budget is allocated. And then the last leg is accountability. All right. So there's a process to be followed there. So it is important that we have our monitoring system quite tied up, but the monitoring must go hand in hand with accountability. People have to be held accountable. You can't have a situation.
Yeah, but who's supposed to be doing that monitoring, considering that now, for instance, we have the monitoring and evaluation department in the presidency. This is now at a national level, but at a local level, who's supposed to be doing that monitoring?
Well, firstly, it's two things. One, the council has a responsibility in terms of the law to hold itself accountable. And this is where the critical problem is. MPEG and other structures of the municipality has to make sure that they hold themselves accountable. Perhaps the point that I'm coming from is that if you don't have the community playing that role also, the cracks start to show. because you need the community also to hold government accountable and the council accountable. For now, it's the municipal council that is supposed to hold itself accountable. And then, of course, the COPTA and the department responsible in the presidency, that is supposed to do that function of monitoring. But, you know, it's not only about monitoring, it's also holding people accountable. People are in these positions, they are paid for, you know, they've been employed to do certain things. If we don't have accountable system in place that is effective, forget about the monitoring. Monitoring is but one part of the story. You need to monitor, improve, but also you need accountability and, of course, the consequences after that.
Thank you so much for your time. That is Mike Makwela, who is a Senior Programs Coordinator at Planact, and of course the Municipal IQ report indicating that as of last year already, South Africa has already faced the unprecedented levels of protest, service delivery protests that have been taking place and already surpassing the figures that we saw pre-COVID-19.